Hi, I'm Duncan, and I'd like to welcome you to my latest YouTube channel feature. Today I'll be talking about a very talented young guitarist called Jimmy McCulloch. Possibly his name rings a bell to many. Some people will know exactly who he was. Other people perhaps not have heard of him. I hadn't heard of him until the summer, August 1977, when on holiday my dad bought me the album Wings at the Speed of Sound on cassette. My family record player sort of used to ruin albums, but I had my own cassette player, so I used to get all my albums on cassette, and I actually got here the actual cassette that I got in 1977. I got it because I loved the song Silly Love Songs, which is on the album. I don't think it was available as a single anymore. And looking through the track listing, because you didn't get a poster like you do with the vinyl album, you don't get lots of pictures of the band recording, but you do at least get an inlay of who Wings are and who does what on the tracks. And I noticed there was a song called Wino Junko, written by McCulloch Allen. That's Colin Allen, who was Jimmy's songwriting partner in many songs. I played the album when I got back from holiday, and I heard Wino Junko, and I really liked it. It wasn't very commercial, but it was a good song, and it had some wonderful guitar work in it, which I presumed was Jimmy. I thought that Denny Lane was lead guitarist and Jimmy was rhythm, but of course it's the other way around. Jimmy was the lead guitarist of Wings. That wonderful solo, the guitar solo that you hear on Denny Lane's Time to Hide, is actually Jimmy. Denny's playing a wonderful mouth organ piece. That's how I think it worked out. Anyhow, as well as Paul and Linda, who are my heroes, guitarists Denny Lane and Jimmy McCulloch, and drummer Joe English became my heroes as well. And because this was now over a year since the album had been released, I thought to myself, oh, they must be surely doing another album by now, which they were. I'll come to that a bit later. But it's pretty best now to go basically back to 1953, when Jimmy was born in Dumbarton. He had a brother called Jack, who was 5 years older than him, and they were very close, very close-knit family. Their parents were very encouraging to them in anything that they got into, making it quite clear that hard work was the way forward. And by the 1960s, older brother Jack had formed a band with Jimmy, and Jimmy was 10 at the time, and they were a very successful little group. I can't remember their name just offhand. Oh my goodness, the Jagars. Sorry, that was it, the Jagars. And they had a wonderful following of teenage fans. They had a fan club with over 700 members. I think they even, I don't think they recorded anything, but they were, because they were considered to be so good locally, with a reputation, when there were local bands coming to play in Glasgow, they would support them. They supported the Pretty Things, and a concert, I don't think, we might have been in Glasgow or somewhere very nearby, they supported The Who, which is not bad going. And because of the showbiz circles that they were working in, they They made friends with all the members of the Who, loads of other groups that were coming through and playing in Glasgow, and the Jaguars didn't stay together forever. They turned into a group called One in a Million that had modest success with records. They were on TV a few times. And that was basically Jimmy and his brother Jack, who was a drummer, and two new musicians. And as I say, they had success, but Jimmy would soon have incredible success when he joined a group that had been very much set up by Pete Townsend of the Who produced their album, and they had a record out called Something in the Air. The band consisted of Jimmy McCulloch and Andy Newman and John Speedy Keane, who I think wrote most of the music. Very successful #1, Something in the Air. And a very good album where they had a follow-up single called Accidents. And I think here I have, it wasn't easy to get hold of, the album Hollywood Dream, which is terrific. Jimmy's right at the bottom there in the picture. Sorry about the glare. Thunderclap Newman would make another album, but by early 1971 they'd split up, and that was Something in the Air was their only major hit. But since it went to #1, it's a pretty good. The band I remember today, and then because Jimmy played in a great many bands, a lot of them not for very long. He was in the band Blue, but I'm afraid he didn't capture their heart, and they didn't capture his heart. And he only stayed there for a very short time, and he then joined he was in a band also called Stone the Crows that had made an album. I think we were on television a few times. He recorded with a lot of people over his career. Steve Ellis of The Love Affair, John Entwistle, Mike McGear, that's Paul's little brother, Robert Jadaltry, and he was very, very respected right throughout the musical industry. Rod Stewart took a very interesting, great interest in having him as a permanent member of his band, as indeed David Bowie did. But eventually, after Jimmy accepted in 1974 an offer that had been dangling about for a little while, but was more concrete than any other offers he'd had, and that was to join Paul McCartney and Wings. And he would debut on the single Junior's Farm, which had the group on Top of the Pops, with Jeff Britton on drums. It's a super song. Surprisingly, it was the first release after Band on the Run, which had been about 9 months previously. The record did get into the top to about number 16 or 17 in the charts. One would expect it a little bit higher than that. We have there was a Wings project that took place called One Hand Clapping, and they did live versions of pretty much all the songs that they'd done that were in their repertoire for a TV special, which never got broadcast and did get a release on video. But only this year we've been very very lucky to have One Hand Clapping. Has now been released on vinyl and CD. The CD is the best value for money, worth getting, even if you're not a Wings fan. The musicianship, particularly Jimmy's guitar work, is just superb. Really, really worth getting. And it's so lovely that something that's been stuck in the vaults for so long has now seen the light of day. The Thunderclap Newman album at the moment is not easy to get hold of. In fact, there's a lot of stuff that Jimmy's done, played on, that some of it's easy to get, some of it isn't. And as well as the One Hand Clapping project, there was the McGear project, which Jimmy played a massive part on, again playing a lot of guitar work on this album for Mike McGear, Paul's younger brother, who was also in The Scaffold. And Paul, realising it was time to get an album out fairly soon, came up with, in the early part of, well, it was sort of spring 1975, Venus and Mars, on which Jimmy played on every track and did some superb guitar working, even on songs that you wouldn't. The album, of course, had Listen to What the Man Said, which was a mammoth hit. Then Letting Go, which was surprisingly not very successful, but Jimmy thought it was the finest track on the album. He does a wonderful guitar work on it. Really loved that song very much. And he also had his own song that he'd written with his friend Colin Allen, Medicine Jar. Jimmy wrote the music, Colin wrote the lyrics, basically about a friend of theirs that was taking drugs, and they were very worried about her. It's a wonderful rocker, Medicine Jar. It could have, I wonder, have been a single. In fact, on Wings at the Speed of Sound, sorry, not Wings at the Speed of Sound, when Wings were touring America, Jimmy did a 3-minute guitar solo without any warning on Medicine Jar. The actual guitar solo is about half a minute, but he decided to do a 3-minute version of it without any knowledge from the other band. The others band were playing along with it, I think, but wondering how long this was going on for. And at the end of the concert, Paul expressed his displeasure to Jimmy and said, "Don't you ever try that again." But they apparently had a really good relationship. Well, that group of that version of Wings that now had Joe English on drums were probably the best Wings lineup ever, and I think they all got on pretty well. There was then I've got our friend Wings at the Speed of Sound was recorded after that, and Wings did a very, very long tour of America and Europe and Australia over a period of about 15 months. And it culminated at the end of 1976 with a triple album, Wings Over America, and a single of Paul's song Maybe I'm Amazed. The album, just again, Jimmy shines on the album really, really well. Right, back to the follow-up album to Wings at the Speed of Sound, which I was hoping was going. I didn't really know what was going on in the music industry. I have attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I wasn't really aware what was going on anywhere, quite frankly, at this time. I was a very mixed up teenager, but I was hoping that Paul would have another record out soon. To my delight, we had Mull of Kintyre on a single at the end of the year, 1977, with Girls' School as a double A-side. The single sold by the bucket load, over 2 million copies in the UK, and Jimmy played on it. played on both tracks, and he played on pretty much the whole of the album that was going to come out in early 1978 from the same sessions as those two tracks, London Town. Jimmy again puts in some sterling guitar work. But sadly, he and Joe English had left the band around about September 1977. So when the record came out, it was just Paul, Linda and Denny Lane on the front cover, although the other, Jimmy and Joe, are credited extensively on the record, being shown what instruments they played. So when the videos came out for Wellican Tire, and there wasn't a video for Girls' School, sadly, Jimmy and Joe are not there. And again, they're not there in the videos for Little Luck, London Town, and I've Had Enough, which is a shame. Jimmy had been playing in a band while Wings, he was still with Wings, with Paul's blessing, because while Linda was having James, baby James, there was quite a lot of time where Wings were quiet for understandable reasons. They trying to remember what album he played on. He was involved very briefly with a group of musicians called Wild Horses, but just jammed with them a few times. He was then in a band called Hinckley's Heroes, which was a sort of revolving super group. But the most successful thing he did around that time was a group called the Dukes, which had his old friend Colin Allen on drums. But for some reason, Colin got given the boot by the record company for some reason, and a new drummer was brought in, and this affected very much the whole structure of the band. And they didn't. They recorded an album, but it didn't turn out the way the band wanted it to. They said it was too American. I don't know what nationality the other members of the band were, so sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful to the Americans in any way. But Jimmy was still very much in demand, appearing as a guest at various gigs, and he wanted so much to do a solo album. He had enough material he'd written with Colin to do that, but sadly, that didn't happen. But I wonder whether a group of musicians could get together and record these songs that he'd written, maybe as a tribute to him in the future. Who knows? It was quite funny because I was I'd like to just show you this wonderful book by Paul Sally called Little Wing, which is the Jimmy McCulloch story, and I believe it's still in print or still available. And I've just been reading it, and it's absolutely superb. It's got a lot of lovely tributes from famous people. Paul writes well, and so apparently his first book, I don't know quite what he's doing at the moment, but I wish him well in his writing career. And it was quite funny because when I was I took the book with me when I go swimming, when I was reading it after I'd been swimming in the lounge of the leisure centre where I go, and a very nice new friend came up to me and was saying, "Oh, is that David Cassidy?" She looked on the front of the book, and I said, "No, it's Jimmy McCulloch." And she said, "Oh, he does look like him, doesn't he?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And I only read a few pages later that Jimmy was on quite friendly terms with David Cassidy. They used to hang out with each other when they were in each other's fair. And to me, Jimmy reminds me of the actor Jack Wilde. You remember The Artful Dodger and the musical Oliver? And Jimmy, was he played Jimmy, the character called Jimmy? He was in H.R. Puffin stuff with the dragon and the talking flute and the nasty witch. He just reminds me of Jack Wilde. He was a very good-looking lad, and so's his brother. And the girls were after him. He was quite unassuming. He was not cocky. He liked to play a joke on people every now and again, some of which backfired. But he was a nice guy. He liked socializing with people. Sounds to me like he was a little bit lonely. He was very good friends with Steve Marriott of the Small Faces. In fact, he did join very briefly the revamped Small Faces in the late 70s, and he was he actually had his own Rolls Royce, which was actually good working for Paul McCartney and Wings. He drove one of Steve Marriott's cars and pranged it quite badly, I understand. But he was loved and revered right through the music industry, and his untimely death really came as a terrible, terrible shock, obviously to his family, but all his friends. And as I say, it's really nice that some of his material is that he worked on, playing the most wonderful guitar solos. And when he was quite small playing a guitar, you could barely see him behind the guitar. But he was one of the best guitarists around, without a doubt. And as I say, not like an extrovert pop star you'd expect, but very shy and but very, very pleasant as well, and friendly. He used to make friends in the pub, meeting musicians in the pub, and well, I didn't know that he died in 1979. As I said, I didn't know much about what was going on. All I know was that Paul was came up with the McCartney album, and Wings split up very soon after that. They had a changed lineup, and which they're still great musicians, but I think the magic had gone slightly when Joe English and Jimmy McCulloch left Wings. But as I say, do have a look at this guy. He's really, really somebody who deserves to be given a bit more sort of credit than he's already been given. I think he should be put in. Somebody suggested he should be put into the Music Hall of Fame, and I think, yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more. But do find out about Jimmy. I think you'll find him very, very interesting. And as I say, I think Little Wing is still available I think from Amazon. Have a look anyway. But this, I hope this has given you a little bit of a taste of Jimmy, and it's got a very good. The book has got a very good list about all the singles and albums that he played on. So if you wanted to check some of these out, maybe we could have a Jimmy McCulloch record store day. Maybe he's known in the States, so who knows? But as I say, Jimmy, your guitar work is still giving a lot of pleasure to people, and I hope you're giving a lot of pleasure to people wherever you are. Take care, and God bless everybody. If you'd like this feature, then please tick the like button, subscribe to my channel if you'd like to, or send this to a friend. But anyhow, I'm signing off now. God bless everybody.